Hello everybody and welcome back to the shop. And as you can see behind me, I've got Kevin's C10 sitting on the rack. And in front of me, I have a mock-up engine and transmission. And today, my plan is to bolt these two together. These are both cores that will need rebuild at some point in time. But I'm gonna use these to mock up and make sure everything fits into the truck. Once I get that fit and I know everything's gonna be good to go, and then I'll end up finishing the teardown on the truck. But anyway, that's my plan for today. Do me a favor, hey, if you haven't yet, please subscribe to my channel and give my videos some likes. It's greatly appreciated. So come along and let's see if we can get some work done today. Thanks. Okay, I've got the engine and transmission. I got those two pieces bolted together. They're just put a couple, 2 or 3 bolts just to hold them together. And I've got the engine set down in the frame. The transmission is sitting on the original cross member in the back, and I'll do something with that once I get the front set. Underneath the oil pan, I just have a 2x4 block, so it's just located in the frame rails. The next thing I'll do is I'll use these bolt-on brackets, and these are designed to where you can use the original clamp shells that came off of the truck, which are these, and those will locate and they'll go on the original motor mount. Now, my plan is this is just for mock-up only. I will replace those. Of course, you know, those things are 30 plus years old, so they'll get replaced. But for now, I'm going to set these plates on here, get it bolted in. These things are adjustable, so I can slide in and out. And as you can see, I've got a lot of room right here that this engine can slide back. These trucks, there's a lot of room up here in the front in the core support area, so not too much worried. I don't want to get it so tight back here that if you ever have to service the engine or transmission, it's extremely hard to get your hands in there. But anyway, the next step, like I said, get the engine located, and I'll raise it up in the air. Once it's up in the air, then I can figure out whether or not I'm going to modify the existing cross member or if I may just replace it. So not too sure which way I'll go on that, but so I ran into just a tad bit of a snag on this passenger side. If you look real close, there's a boss on the side of the block. There's 2 of them, and these are for the original factory AC brackets. And as you can see, it's hitting that motor mount on that side. So I'm glad I caught this. I can trim those off because, like I said, these are pretty much rendered useless with this set of brackets. The air conditioning will actually mount up here higher anyway, but so I'll buzz that little piece off right there on this block for mock-up, but then that's a really good catch. Since I haven't painted his block yet, I'll be able to get that cut off. So anyway, I'm gonna cut that off and then I'll finish getting this thing installed. I got the engine set down into place. If you'll notice, I started to cut that tab off of this block, but I'm not 100% sure that this block will be in an application. I wanted to be on the safe side, because if I ever build this block for an OE application, which basically if it ever goes back into a 99 and up Chevy pickup, and I needed that hole, then I'd be in trouble. So what I ended up doing, I just notched the clamshell, and on the engine block that goes into this truck for keeps, or basically once the engine block that mounts into it for good, I may cut that off, because at that point in time, it probably won't ever go into another vehicle. So I set an intake on it. This is a Trailblazer SS intake. I'm not real sure we may use this intake. It is supposed to outperform the truck manifolds just a little bit. So unless we get kind of crazy and decide to go with an aftermarket intake. But anyway, for the most part, it's set. The angle on the engine, it looks pretty decent. I want to check the pinion angle so I can kind of look at the drive shaft angle. So I'll raise this thing up and we'll look at the underneath of it. Okay, I've got it raised up in the air. Not sure what that is. But anyway, this is the original cross member, and of course somebody didn't completely bolt it back into place. But as you can see, it's very, very close. The only thing I would end up doing would just basically just re-drilling these holes on the sides over here. And I may do that, but then again, this is a factory cross member. It will be just fine. It's worked on these things for years, but they have a cross member that looks a little bit, it's a lot better, and it's budget friendly. So I may end up putting a different cross member in here, but I want to check, before I get too carried away, I may have to build a spacer underneath here, which is not a big deal, just so I can get the angle of the transmission up just a little bit. So all in all, I'm pretty pleased. It's set in here. These things, basically, it's almost like these things are meant to be in these trucks. So, man, I forgot we got such really pretty headers. These are Hooker Blackheart headers, and they are absolutely gorgeous. I'm going to make sure everything clears. Excuse me, mock up. I don't want to leave these on here for a long period of time. Just get everything kind of bolted into place to make sure we don't have any issues, which we shouldn't, because these were purchased for this swap. Core blocks have been laying around for a while. Noticed a lot of those holes were corroded. As I said earlier, was with that cross member in the back for the transmission, it will work. It's not the prettiest in the world, but on this side, the driver's side, the exhaust goes up above the cross member, between it and the bottom of the cab. This one has got a lot of clearance, but on the other side, I noticed that I'm gonna have to do a kind of an offset to get it, because it goes under the cross member on the passenger side. So I might actually look at buying one of those cross members and we'll try it out. Like I said before, they're very budget friendly. So anyway, that's gonna wrap up the mock-up up here, so I feel pretty good. I think I'll tear it all apart now. So another thing I might go ahead and do, since I got this thing lifted up in the air, the other day I sprayed all the bolts, the bed bolts down with penetrating oil to kind of help loosen those up. Believe it or not, there's 8 bolts on this thing. I thought there was only 4, but anyway, I think I'm gonna go ahead and unbolt the bed and get the C-notch for the rear end started, because that pretty much, with the engine and transmission mounted and what little modifications, pretty much all that stuff will be bolt in. I don't think I have to do anything as far as a major modification on the frame in the front. So the next thing I'll end up doing is the C-notch, and once I'm done with that, then I can go ahead and rip this thing completely apart. Probably gonna send some stuff out and have it sandblasted. I've got some metal work to do, like we said earlier, and that will pretty much get it to where I can finish the frame and get the frame started back together before all the body pieces come in. So that'll be the next thing we do, is the C-notch. Okay, I managed to get the bed unbolted, and sure enough, a couple of the bolts I had to cut. There's always that one bolt, and then as I was lifting the bed off, you've heard the expression about the cherry pick testing the strength of everything that's still fastened. So I actually, the fuel hose nozzle, the fuel hoses were still hooked to the bed. They were hung, and so I had to get those clear. But anyway, got the rear, the shocks off of it. The flip kit and C-notch comes with new U-bolts. So here in just a few minutes, I'm gonna cut those U-bolts loose. But I wanna show you something in the front of this truck. I learned a lesson almost the hard way on a 72 Chevy that I had almost like this. When I pulled the rear end out of this thing, there wasn't enough weight in the back end, and it kind of wanted to get nose heavy with the engine in it. So if you're doing this, just a little safety precaution, put some jack stands under the front. That way, if it does decide it wants to teeter, then you can catch the weight of it. So anyway, I'm gonna cut these U-bolts out and try to mock up the rear end and figure out the center line. I want to get the rear end dropped a little bit more to ride height and figure out, get the C-notch a little bit closer to the center line. So that's what I'm going to do now. got to thinking there's really no big reason for me to assemble a bunch of this. So what I've done is I've let the truck down and put some weight under, put some stands underneath the rear end to kind of get this suspension compressed, to get the rear end closer to the frame. And what I did after that is I put me a centerline mark basically on the frame right here, which you can see I came off this edge and then took half the distance of the axle diameter and got this centerline mark. And what that'll do is that'll help me locate and center this bracket on the frame. Now I've got to cut this piece off, and then I will make a template that fits on the inside of this C-notch, and I'll end up notching this frame out. Once I'm done, then I think since these are set up to bolt on, I'll end up knocking the powder coating off of this and clean the frame. I'm gonna do double this. I'll bolt it in and weld it in. And that way it for sure isn't gonna go anywhere. So that's the next step. I'll make a template and we'll get this marked out and I'll start cutting. All right, I got me a little cardboard template cut out. Get this fairly close. Mark this across here. And we'll mark it here. And kind of give me an eyeball underneath. I'll put a square across this and I'm getting ready to, I'll cut this section out. Okay, before I get this thing cut all the way through, there's a couple of things that I want to, couple more things I want to point out. One is I'm getting ready to knock me I'm going to put a center punch mark here, and I'm going to drill a rounded hole here. And I was going to try to do the same thing here, but this brake line hole is already there. So basically what that's for is any flex in this frame, it's to keep that from cracking if there's a hole there. So I think I may be good on here. I may go ahead and try to go ahead and cut one right below here, but that will kind of help stop. Another thing is I want to put a brace across the back of this. That way the back side of this frame don't try to pull down. So it kind of got a little tight on that on the cut. So just a couple more things just to be aware of. And there you have it. Like I said, I will probably go ahead, and you notice I went ahead and cleaned these edges. I've got these holes drilled. I used transfer punch to put those pilot holes in, and I've went ahead and drilled these 3 holes. There's 2 more holes on the bottom. I'm probably gonna go ahead and bolt it in, but then I think I'm gonna bring my MIG machine and I'm gonna go ahead and lace this thing up on all the way around on both sides. And on the inside, I might go ahead, it wouldn't be that much more, but I may clean the powder coating off of the inside of that move the brake line out of the way, which I almost forgot to do, and go ahead and weld the inside of this thing up. And then I promise you, this thing will never go anywhere. So, all right, I will be cutting, grinding, and repeat on the other side. And once that's done, I'll finish tearing this truck apart. Okay, as you can see, I've got both frame rails cut and I've got both C-notches installed. And as usual, I overdo things sometimes. And since these are definitely designed to just be a bolt-in application, I went ahead and bolted and welded. There is a couple of spots on the backside where the actual frame rail's at. I want to make sure that I get in here with a smaller MIG machine and I lay some of these up, dress some of those edges up so there's no double edges exposed where any type of moisture can get in between these two pieces of metal. So, and that'll be something another thing that I do before we strip this truck. But for the most part, the next step on this truck is just basically disassembling it down to the bare nut and bolt. I'm gonna pop the cab, strip the cab apart. There's a little bit of rust repair that I talked about earlier in the cab corners and rockers. And then on the bed, which is sitting back here, there's some repair that still needs to be made on the bed. And the stake pockets, of course, I'm going to cover those. And there's one small spot of rust on the rear of it on the passenger side, which is really rare for these trucks because the amount of rust that's in this is very minimal. So that'll be my next step. I'll be filming that stuff too. But in the meantime, I want to thank everybody for watching this, and also if I've captured any new audience and new members that has come along and subscribed to this, thanks for watching, and I will see you on the next episode. Thank you.